No matter what you do, you can't make your mitochondria do what you want them to do. Now, you're going to make it worse if you push past that envelope. You're going to be much worse. But if you stay in the envelope, there is some potential that you could have some improvement. It's not guaranteed, but it's possible. But you're not going to be able to let me exercise 5 minutes today. Tomorrow I'm going to exercise 6. Tomorrow I'm going to exercise 7. Whatever your limit is probably going to stay at that limit. It's not like you can just keep willpowering
at a day
and past, right? You're not going to it's like me. I can, lift so much weight. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to bench press 200 pounds. Even if I start with 1 pound and go up a pound a day, there's going to be a limit where I can do no more.
I want to welcome you to the Hope and Help podcast, where we talk about science and science-based tools for fatigue and chronic illness. I'm your host, Haylie Pomroy. I'm a #1 New York Times best-selling author of The Fast Metabolism Diet, a leading health and wellness expert, and I'm also a PhD student, guys, in neuroimmunology. That's right, I'm back in school again. I am a fierce advocate for those in need of a little bit of help and definitely some hope. Today, I have a super special guest. You have met Dr. Hoppers in the past. We had such an incredible response from you guys, and there were so many questions that our community was asking us that I asked her to please come back and talk to you. So Dr. Hoppers, thank you so much for being with us again today. It's just great to get a chance to monopolize your time a little bit on behalf of everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and really excited to tell more people, talk about post-exertional malaise and how it affects people. I think it's so important, and just having the opportunity is wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Dr. Hoppers, I know that you are practicing both in Tennessee and in Utah. Can you explain, just for everybody out there, we lean on you for advice and insight, but what are you doing from a clinical perspective? Tell me a little bit about your practice.
Sure. So I started seeing patients with myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, and mast cell activation syndrome, orthostatic intolerance, POTS, long COVID, several years ago. But it was sort of like it's never ending in the fact that there's just not enough time. There's not enough slots for everyone who needs help. And I realized that I was chipping away at such a huge, monumental task and just not getting enough done. The Bateman Horne Center offered me a position there, and I realized I have a much bigger imprint when I work with them. And so I work for the Bateman Horne Center. Their mission is to, provide clinical care for patients with these illnesses, but they also provide research and education opportunities. And what I especially love about the vision there is it's the educational portion is not just, it's great. It is toward patients, but it's also toward providers.
Right.
And we try to think of it from a provider standpoint. It's not just we try to make it in bits and pieces that's digestible for the provider, so that this chronic complex illness is not so overwhelming. And so
I'm just going to really quick, the Bateman Horne Center, that's where you're practicing in Utah, correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
Okay. And what I just want to bring up, so when I'm at Nova at NSU, we're part of a medical school, right? Mm-hmm. We're part of the osteopathic medical school. And whether it's with Dr. Klimas at the Institute for Neuro-Immune Medicine, or when we're, engaging in education at the medical school, one of the biggest things and how we lean into you guys is educating the doctors that are coming up and mm-hmm. rewriting clinical care standards for the doctors that are currently practicing. And so you kind of play in both of those roles, correct? So you're mm-hmm. advocating for patients, but you're also physically seeing patients, and you're right. helping us get some of the medical curriculum just not archaic for these kinds of disorders. But when I'm seeing these clients that are not well, that are struggling, that are stressed, they have a difficult time. So two things I want to give people that are listening right away is, you talk about a one sheet. There are volumes, thousands and thousands of incredible papers that have been published with research with ME/CFS and now long COVID. But you guys have condensed that knowledge into very digestible stuff. So where can someone that's listening to this go to download that?
Our website is www.batemanhorncenter.org.
Will you spell that for me?
It's BatemanHorneCenter.org.
Your background, which has always been super fascinating to me, but you've got a lot of background in peds and pediatrics. And right now, I mean, it was just on the cover of National Geographic. It's been on the cover of Time magazine. Our youth, our kids, our babies, right, are dealing with things like POTS and post-exertional malaise. And can we just talk a little bit, and I think you're the right person for me to ask this to, what in the world is going on with our kids?
Well, I mean, it's numbers, right? Before the pandemic, there were maybe 100,000 to 300,000 children with ME/CFS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome.
Right.
These are typically a post-viral or post-infectious cause or trigger. Not all.
Like mono,
giardia, enteroviruses, whatever virus of the week, flu can do it. Even head trauma, surgery can do it. So it's not the only thing, but
we saw a pediatric football player, right, with a concussion. We've seen families that have mold in the house. So there's some sort of negative hormetic event that triggers the immune system to go into this
dysfunctional state.
Yeah, dysfunctional state. Okay. But kids were more resilient, or what's going on since COVID?
Well, COVID is just a lot of people got exposed to a virus they hadn't been exposed to before. So many people have gotten infected, including children, and children are not immune to long COVID. About 10 to 20% of those that are infected get long COVID. So that's the recent estimate I saw was 5.8 million children. Now, here's for perspective. Do you have, and this is a trick question because why would you know the answer to this? But do you know how many people or how many children have asthma? The number is 4.9 million kids have asthma. And I can pretty much guarantee you that any provider who sees children sees kids with asthma.
Every pediatrician, I hope to God, every pediatrician out there is super versed in pediatric.
Oh, you are so hopeful. Goodness.
Right. Would you say that every pediatrician out there is super versed in pediatric ME/CFS?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Right.
Absolutely not. No.
Right.
Sadly, tragically, no. I would say I'm doing a pediatric echo in November, and I've spent a lot of time trying to listen to other people who've lectured, trying to listen or read all the papers I can, just to make sure I'm up to date on everything. And there just is nothing. There's very, very little. Even the lectures, some of them don't, there's nothing to do. There's not, here's the numbers, here's what's happening. We need research. No, and here's what we do now. And we've got to get the message out about post-exertional malaise. At least that has to be talked about. Post-exertional malaise it's kind of like upside down world, right? All my career, exercise helps most everything. We want people to move, right?
Hey guys, it's Haylie Pomroy, your host. Right about now, you're probably struggling to achieve the health that you deserve, and you're just not sure what you need to do in order to get it. So what I've done is I've created a special link for you that will give you the nutrition and supplement programs that I use in my private practice to achieve amazing results for my clients and my community. Go to HayliePomroy.com/podcast. Plus, when you use that link, you'll get a 20% discount just because I love you. Again, that's HayliePomroy.com/podcast. Now, back to the episode.
I love that people are talking about pediatric health in general right now. I think with the food coloring and the food dyes and the toxins and, people going after Kellogg as a company, I think we should be going after our federal government as a company so that they don't allow those toxins in our foods. But one thing that we talk about in our community is if you're not sure what toxins are in your foods and you're trying to seek out foods to have in a good example, go towards anything that's being marketed towards children right now, which put the immune system in a more vulnerable state. So I feel like there's kind of this massive pediatric need right now. And so we need to pull in all the assets that we can to get kids healthy or resilient again. But it's really shining a light on these toxins, and specifically with ME/CFS, these neurotoxins, right, that are bombarding kids. So do you feel like I kind of feel like these two conversations are converging at once? Do you feel like pediatricians are starting to look at the children that are sick ecosystem and say what's going on in their world? What are the stressors? Or are they just, kind of saying, okay, oops, now we have a ton of ME/CFS kids or long COVID kids. How do we treat? Are they looking at why at all, do you think?
I guess it depends on who the pediatrician is, right? I hope so. I hope so. I know that one of the things I get asked is how do I approach my caregiver? How do I approach my pediatrician?
Exactly.
And I hate the question. And the reason why I hate the question is I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to tell you the things that I think you need to do because it's just ridiculous. You shouldn't have to figure out how to tiptoe around your provider and ask for what you want. And I hate the word provider. Collaborator is a better word,
Right.
but then people don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I think language is important. But, the person who is working with you on your health needs to listen to you. You know yourself best, especially people with ME/CFS and long COVID who've been dealing with it for a while. If they tell you, this is not in my best interest, work with them.
Give me some of the insider practical tips that we can do walking in. Let's say a mom has a kid with long COVID or ME/CFS, or the mom themselves or the dad themselves or the college kid themselves is dealing with this. I love your printouts. That's why I love your printouts, because they're indisputable, right? They're backed by massive institutes and phenomenal research. So what's somebody going to say? That is empowering in writing. How can I prepare for a visit?
One of the things, I thought about this a lot. One of the things is I like to tell the provider, okay, here's what my function used to be, or here's what my child's function used to be. They were active, they were in sports, they were in extracurricular activities. And now my child is unable to attend school every day of the week. When she's home, let me be clear, on the weekends, she is unable or he is unable to attend social activities. Be clear, it's not just, I don't want to go to school. It's, here's how my life has changed. Because if there's always the whole, oh, maybe they're depressed. Well, I'd be depressed if my doctor said that to me when I felt like crap. But that's not the cause of this illness. Let me be very clear. And one of the ways you can distinguish that is, what would you like to do? If you felt good today, what would you do? A person who is depressed doesn't want to do anything. A person who's not has a list of things they'd like to do.
Right.
Kids of 8 don't, again, it goes back to the provider. If the provider would read and understand about the disease, they'd easily see this is very different from anything else. But that's what's so hard about it, is it's a phenomenon that doesn't occur in other illnesses. So it's very different. We didn't learn about it in medical school. But again, I try to go into the room. I always believe my patient. Always.
Right.
Why would they make something up? Just believe them. And if you go in with that attitude, you're going to come out learning a lot.
So will you talk us through that post-exertional malaise. And again, I feel like in us, successful type A women, it's such a mind, what, and in our peds, it's tragic. So explain to me what physiologically happens in the body. People tell me you get tired after you exercise. I get it. I do too. Push through it. What's the difference? Why is that not the case? And I know I probably just raised every hackle you've ever had.
No, so actually the definition of post-exertional malaise is a worsening of a patient's symptoms and level of functioning following even small amounts of exertion or certain triggers. Everything you do requires energy, right? If you write a paper, that requires a lot of energy. That uses a lot of glucose. When you do physical things, of course, and not, for some people, a physical stressor who has ME/CFS, it may be, I walked around the block, but another person, it may be I got up and walked to the bathroom, and that's enough of a stressor for them.
Right.
It can also, but it's also like sensory input. When you're in a room with bright lights, you're having to absorb that, and your brain is taking that information and processing it. The sounds that you hear, environmental stressors, like you said, toxins, or a busy environment can be a stressor. And I say stressor, but it's an energy consumer, right? And so everything takes up energy. Well, a person with ME/CFS, long COVID, and not all people with long COVID have ME/CFS, but many of them do. Okay.
Right.
Kind of like the subset that's more severe are the ones who have ME/CFS, if you meet criteria. And one of the criteria is that you have to have post-exertional malaise. So if you have post-exertional malaise, I would contend that most likely you're going to meet the criteria for ME/CFS. But so if you have this crash afterward, if you have this situation where everything gets worse, where all of your symptoms get worse, you may develop new symptoms. You're exhausted. Fatigue is in there, but that's not the only thing. It's not just I'm tired. It's I'm tired and my legs hurt and my head is killing me. And I literally can only maybe crawl to the bathroom. I can't get up. If there was a fire, I don't know if I could get out of the house. Their body has consumed all of the energy it can produce. The mitochondria cannot produce more. And so they're in an anaerobic state. They are unable to produce energy properly.
Hey guys, it's Haylie, your host. I wanted to bring to your attention the possibility of coming in and doing a study with us. It is called the COVID UP study. And UP stands for Understanding the Post-Viral Phase. You have to be local in South Florida. There are 2 phases of this study. Let me give you the phone number. It's 305-275-5450. And the email is inimresearch@nova.edu. We are currently looking for patients that are dealing with post-COVID, long COVID. We have 2 phases of that study. Please contact us and see if this could be an opportunity for you to get the care and information that you need.
Hola, soy la doctora Ana Palacio, de la Universidad de Miami. Me encantó participar en el podcast de hoy y quería invitarlos a considerar el estudio COVID UP. Este estudio está tratando de determinar por qué las personas no mejoran después de COVID. Si les interesa saber más de este estudio, por favor llamen al número 305-275-5450 o pueden escribir al email inimresearch@nova.edu. Les agradezco mucho su interés y los vemos la próxima vez.
Do you have a specific strategy when we're trying to build people up in this process? Like, I'm all about food. Before we started, you talked about downloading tomato sauce, this non-tomato based pasta sauce. Like, my thing is always like, okay, what's the problem? Let's find a solution. If you can't have tomatoes, let's make no tomato sauce. If you can't, have gluten, let's make gluten-free. Really yeah, amazing stuff. Let's find that. You guys are so good at helping patients. The diagnostic is so incredibly important. The validation is life-saving, in my opinion. But you also turn patients around, and that's what's really cool. How do you build a person or begin to build a person with post-exertional malaise?
Okay. Well, so post-exertional malaise is the more you're in post-exertional malaise, it can slowly cause you to lose your baseline. Remember, your baseline is the activity level that you can, perform without feeling ill. Okay, that's your baseline. That's kind of your energy envelope. Well, I want you to stay in that energy envelope. I'm not trying to, no matter what you do, you can't make your mitochondria do what you want them to do, right? Now, you're going to make it worse if you push past that envelope. You're going to be much worse. But if you stay in the envelope, there is some potential that you could have some improvement. It's not guaranteed, but it's possible. But you're not going to be able to let me exercise 5 minutes today. Tomorrow I'm going to exercise 6. Tomorrow I'm going to exercise 7. Whatever your limit is probably going to stay at that limit. It's not like you can just keep willpowering
at a
up
day
and past, right? You're not going to it's like me. I can, lift so much weight. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to bench press 200 pounds. Even if I start with 1 pound and go up a pound a day, there's going to be a limit where I can do no more.
Do you guys do any, we have a gentleman in our clinic that does testing to look at oxygen and mitochondrial activity. Is there a way to know, or do you do symptom person? We do that as a community with kind of our symptom, like what level do you do and feel good?
So pacing to me is really individualized. You can do CPET testing. Most people don't have access to that. That can actually, a CPET test can harm a patient. There's some modified protocols and this and that, but that's not something I order. And I'm not saying it should never be ordered. I'm just saying that's not something I do. But we talk about pacing and we talk about staying within their energy envelope. There's different ways to do that depending on the person. Some people, I have some patients that really like something to follow. They want a number. I had a patient who has a watch. And there's different ones, there's different apps and things like that. And I'm not going to try to tell people which one to go to, but that she had one that gave her activity points. And this was actually a watch that, they want you to get more points, but she learned if I get 30 points and I stay at 30, I'm fine. If I go over 30, I'm in trouble. So she would watch that. And she said some days at 9 a.m. I was at 28 points, so I knew, and she was disciplined, and she was lucky enough. I guess lucky is the word. I don't know what the right word is, but she was retired and she had a very supportive family. So when she was at 28 at 9 a.m., it was okay. She got to sit down, recline, put her feet up and rest. Now, unfortunately, everyone can't get the disability that they need. Everyone doesn't have a supportive family. So that's hard. So when I say these things, I want to put that out there. So people hearing this, I don't want them to go, well, that's pie in the sky. Cause I get that for some, you have to figure out some other things for other people.
Right.
But she used that. She used a wearable. She had a number, an objective piece of information. We can also use heart rate. We can use your resting heart rate. And what we do, the way we determine your resting heart rate is every morning before you get out of bed, you check your heart rate. Do that on 7 good days. Now, don't do it on a crash day. Don't do it on a bad day. But on 7 good days, get that number. You want to average it up. Let's just say it's 60. Okay. So your average heart rate is 60 and you know that. Now, every morning you check that heart rate. If you're 10 above, so that would be 70. Or more. So if you're 70 or higher, or if you're 10 below, so again, that would be what I say, 60, so that'd be 50. So if you're below 50 or above 70, your average is 60.
Got it.
Then that's a day where you better say, I need to back off. I need to take some rest time. I need to really watch what I'm doing so I don't go overboard. That's kind of a signal for you.
So that number is your resting heart rate. So you take 7 good days, you take that average, and you use that as kind of your template to say
that's kind of your guide.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
and if I wake up and my resting heart rate is 78, then I go, it's I'm going to have to be more gentle with
cautionary.
myself. Yeah, cautionary. Yeah, and also put things in place, let my world know, that I love that. I'm a numbers girl. So I appreciate that. And I think
Absolutely.
my mind gets distracted in tasks and
I can do a little bit more. I can do a little bit.
Overwhelming. To-do list that if I don't have something to measure, that's hard for me. When a person goes throughout the day, is there any indication that a person can preempt crashing? Like, is there any techniques that you can help us with that? Because so many of our clients or my clients will say, I'm crashed, I've tanked, I've crashed, I've hit a wall. And I'm like, I wish we could have caught you before then, hydrated you, given you some food, had you put your feet up, put compression stockings on, all of those things preemptively.
There's a lot of things. One is, again, everybody's different in what they're able to do, but scheduled rest breaks. That patient I told you about, she was really cool. We had done some things and she had improvement, and she was much better than when she started out. But she said, I want to feel a little bit better. And she decided to focus on pacing. So I use her as an example a lot. So one thing she did is, and she was pretty much homebound. Okay. So she could do things around the house, piddle around the house. She really didn't do much outside the house. Okay. So that was her baseline.
Yes.
And so she would, on Wednesdays, that was a rest day. Every Wednesday, rest day. Every other day, she'd have a morning break, an afternoon break, and an evening break. So like 20 minutes where she'd lay down, recline, put the cold compress across her face, put some compression boots on, and just breathe, turn off the sound, turn the lights down, all the things, right? So she had scheduled rest breaks. She also, like I said, would take Wednesday off. So that was one of the things that she did. Now I've had other patients again, some people, the numbers will drive them bonkers. You have them like, okay, here's my heart rate. And now they're like constantly looking at it, and like they're always anticipating that alarm going off. So some people can't do this, and I completely understand that. But for some people, you can take that resting heart rate, and Workwell Foundation, which is a great resource, says to add 15 to it and use that as kind of a warning sign. That's hard. Okay. Because if your resting heart rate 60, at 75, that alarm's going to go off and you're going to say, okay, time to rest. Well, some people would never get out of their bed. They turn over and they're up that much. So that's kind of hard. But some people will use a heart rate of 120, but just something kind of limited, put an alarm on so that when that number goes off, you go, let me be mindful here. It's time to take a break. It just is kind of a reminder.
No, I love it. I love numbers, but I also love that you're bringing that into helping the patient, like just lean into what's going on in their body a little bit.
And see, they can also start to, a lot of it is paying attention, right? You hear the alarm go off and you go, how am I feeling?
Exactly.
Oh, wait, I'm a little bit short of breath. Maybe my chest is a little heavy. Maybe I'm feeling a little brain foggy. Maybe it wasn't super obvious because, if you have brain fog, how do you know you have brain fog, right? So it gives you that reminder, oh, wait, something's not right. Now you start to clue into those symptoms, and you don't necessarily have to wear the alarm. But it depends on the person, because some people are not aware of their symptoms. I'm aware of every single thing. I have a little oh my goodness, this could be the end. I have a little bump on my finger. And then other people can walk around with a limb half off and they didn't notice. So It just depends on the person. But the other thing too is finding ways to conserve your energy, and I know I've said this 100 times and I don't want to repeat things, but, use a shower chair. Ask your provider for a handicap or I call them accessibility stickers, and then nobody knows what I'm talking about, but the placard that lets you park up front. Okay. If you cook and you can freeze some meals for later. I'm trying to think of all the things. When people come to the doctor's office, I try to accommodate for them. When you go to the doctor, get a later appointment if possible. Ask if you can sit in the car till it's your turn.
So I'm going to circle it back to kids for a minute. How do we deal with kids in development? There's so much science around exercise and activity for all of us as being the vehicle to getting well and being well. How is that dichotomy of, but wait a minute, PEM is a major cornerstone of this syndrome. How do we reconcile that in the pediatric world? I mean, do we tell our kids to lay down? Do we like what are you seeing? Because we're in a crisis over here, like clinically, right? We're going, how do we support these kids? And we had a kid, the mom says, I lay down, I give them their iPad and they watch YouTube. I go, no. Stimulus. You know what I mean? But,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard, but at the end of the day, if they're experiencing PIM, that's not good. I mean,
yes,
that is detrimental to their health. And yes, sure, do I want our kids to exercise? Of course I do. But if they're in PIM, no,
right.
That's harming them. PIM supersedes the benefits of exercise. Now, I was talking about this earlier with somebody, and again, I work with patients. I'm not the ultimate, here's what we're going to do.
Exactly.
This is the only way to do it thing. But I have a patient who it's very important for her to exercise some. And she said it's for her mental health. She needs it.
Correct.
And she will sacrifice other things so that she can have a 20-minute session once a week. And it's reclining exercise. She takes breaks in between, and I'm very nervous about it, but she does that, and that's what she needs to do. And if that's what she needs to do, then that's certainly her prerogative. And so I try to guide her in a way to make it where it's not harmful to her as best I can. With kids, it's hard because, kids don't get to make decisions. I mean, it depends on what age they're. If they're 16, they're a little bit more independent. But when you're 10 and someone says to you, you need to get up and go to school, and their body is telling them, no, I don't need to get up and go to school. I need to stay home. And they say that, they verbalize, I don't feel well, whatever. And they get sent to school anyway. They can't, they're not in control of their pacing. So I think we have to be really, really careful that, again, why we need to get the message out, because it's harder for kids to be autonomous. They're in a place every day for 8 hours where other people are in charge of their schedule,
exactly,
in charge of them, and they don't even know that they're harming them. Just like that pediatrician you said was telling them to exercise, she was harming them. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate you saying that. But that brings me right back to where we started, which is the education, right? Because if you define bullying, right, this kid is getting, I do believe that this pediatrician was doing the very best with the knowledge base that they had. I think I get upset, and there's a responsibility. If you're going to care for kids, you need to learn what's going on with kids. And when you tell me, that we've got 5.8 million children with ME/CFS or long COVID, it would be as derelict as a pediatrician not understanding asthma, right? Saying, well, gosh, I told him just hold your breath and, do deep breathing, and that's going to cure your environmental based asthma or whatever. So I do think, like, now we know the science is there. You got to get educated, and we've got to change the medical curriculum, period, because this is what we're dealing with. There's no way around it. 5.8 million kids or 5.8 million people are not suddenly going to, some cure is going to fall out of the sky. Like if they're seeking medical care, the physicians have to be versed in the disease that warrants the medical care. I mean, it's just, again, we get in the community. I talk to the people, the moms that are just furious and frustrated, we have right now a mom that was diagnosed ME/CFS and never, there's some genetic components that people talk about, not methylating, there's all these theories. She had 3 incredibly robust children. One of them has just tanked after COVID. And genuinely, the pediatrician talked about, do you think that because you've experienced this, maybe they're having mirroring behavior, emotionally, because they're trying to create a closeness with their mom that's struggling in their health. You're not surprised. You're not surprised because you live it. You live it. So we always say we believe you, and I love that you said that, right? How does one find doctors like you? Are you guys seeing patients in Tennessee and Utah? Do people fly in? How can they get this kind of care? Do you guys see pediatrics?
I do.
Okay. Oh, yay.
And, it's hard because everybody can't, everybody can't travel and we are working so hard at the Bateman Horne Center, with Talia Ricciani, is our fearless leader on education. And, we're trying our dead level best to get this information out there. Just, that's working nonstop to do that. So, and it's there. If the pediatricians will just look, there is information out there for them. But
moms and dads can go to your website and download it too. Mm-hmm. And we'll post it. We'll post it. We'll post your guys' link and make sure. I want, if your doctor isn't versed or educated in this,
if they're open, there's information, right?
Yeah. Well, and you know what? If they're not open,
ditch them. But but to be truthful, it's sometimes hard. There are sometimes people who are in situations where there's only 2 people in their town that take insurance, if they are lucky enough to have insurance,
Exactly.
So you've got to figure out what it is. If you're lucky enough to be able to ditch them and get one who is willing to listen, fantastic. If not, there's resources. If not, God, this is horrible, but they have to read about PIM and learn how to pace themselves. But it becomes difficult because with kids, see, here's one of the problems too, schools, right?
This is what yes.
You have
the most bullying PE teacher. One of the kids.
Yes.
You're soft, you're weak, get over it. When I was a kid, I had to,
the peer pressure from the adults. Okay. I'm not talking about peer pressure from kids. I'm talking about the peer pressure from adults. And even when given accommodations for the child, sometimes are not followed.
Yeah.
I wish I knew the answer to that. Maybe have somebody on who can give the answer to that. Well, that makes me want to,
I'm with you. The only reason we built our community, we have an online community, was because I just felt like, so we have this request for care, which is a letter that we help our community prepare before they go into a doctor's office, right? Mm-hmm. And it's how to lay it out, how to line it out, if you need to pull a white paper, if I need to pull resources from your clinic, how to pull it together so you present yourself with a package that you at least hedge your bets to get some decent aspect of care, right? Mm-hmm. And I also say when you find a good doctor, and that doesn't mean that they can cure 5.8 children. It means that they're open, they're receptive, and then they're on your team, right? That is the definition. They have empathy. Shout them out. We sign books and send hundreds of books to doctors all the time that are advocates for, being healthy, using whole foods, falling in love with food, creating a healthy relationship. Like when we find doctors that say, that's great, then we just say, thank you. And we write notes. Thank you for being an advocate for this patient. And we do that. And we collect individuals like yourself that are out there, breaking down barriers. We are in a crisis situation in my opinion, with autoimmunity, ME/CFS, chronic fatigue, chronic disease in general. And it's going to take people like yourselves continuing to shout it out. And I just really appreciate you coming on our podcast, because our community just loves what you give them permission to do, education to go forward with, and like a plan, right? So they don't feel like they're without hope. So I cannot thank you. We have a massive population at this point, and I know that you're making an impact one-on-one with every patient that has the privilege to see you. But I love that you're able to help our community because they need it really bad right now. So Dr. Hoppers, I know what's going to happen. This is going to go live. Everybody's going to ask more questions. Please say you'll come back.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And you guys, make sure you go to the website, download your information. I suggest going to Utah or Tennessee personally, because people come to see us all the way in Florida. And there is just such a difference in outcome when you finally get the care you deserve, and you deserve it. Everybody out there, you deserve to be treated with the utmost respect, the most forward-thinking science, and all the support that is possibly accessible. So Dr. Hoppers, thank you for being here. We are all
Thank you.
healthier because of you. So I really appreciate you.
Thanks for doing this.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.